This is the Kudilar television channel being broadcast on the internet, not on satellite, not on terrestrial, not on the cable networks. This is the Kudilar television channel, edition 2 of Sunday, edition 1 of Sunday, 8th of December 2024. We are continuing to diagnose the news item printed on page 23 of the Times of Saturday, 7th of December 2024, headlined Observer Sold Despite Fury in Newsroom. This is such an empty item, empty of substance, absolutely empty of substance, because it's, how shall I put it? It is an item that is stuffed full of tittle tattle, not of substance. Tittle tattle exchanges between Catherine Weiner, who has been the editor of the Guardian group since the departure of Alan Rabisha. Now, the Guardian, throughout the period of the corrupt Lutfur Rahman, incumbent in the corrupt post of executive mayor at the expense of the community, the people, democracy in and of Tower Hamlets, the corrupt Guardian under the mis-editorship of Alan Rabisha, the corrupt Alan Rabisha. The Guardian maintained shoring up the lying, corrupt Lutfur Rahman incumbency. The incumbency that was interrupted on the 23rd of April 2015 by the ruling by the election commissioner, Richard Morey, titled as QC at that time because Queen Brenda was still alive. Now Morey would be called or titled as KC, King's Counsel. Now, one of the things that the Observer did was allow its so-called then London diarist to slot in any kind of excuses and pretense promotions for Lutfur Rahman, while neglecting the many crises that Lutfur Rahman concealed. Lutfur Rahman was effectively involved in abusing his position in siphoning off millions of pounds worth of property and resources belonging to the people of Tower Hamlets. And that was something that was hinted at. It wasn't something that was elaborately reported, but it was something that was hinted at by the accountants, Price Waterhouse, that were appointed by the then community secretary, Eric the Pickles. Now, there has been no mention whatsoever in any of the pieces that the Guardian has published about Tower Hamlets of the extensive network of crooks and criminals that Lutfur Rahman is part of. One of the things that the now deceased Wapping reporter Mark Baines actually tried to investigate was the de facto handing over at almost no value to the community of a significant part of the property near Commercial Road and Sutton Street in Shadwell to the crook Mahi Ferdaus Jalil of Channel Slaves, Channel S. No mention of any of that in The Guardian. No mention, of course, in any of the so called remaining so called media that operates as front for the crooks in Tower Hamlets at the expense of the community it wrongly refers to as the Bengali community. So, the Observer, as I said in the previous edition on 7th of December 2024, the Observer actually was edited by Donald Trelford. Donald Trelford, the pixie Trelford, who published thousands of copies, printed thousands of copies of a leaflet supporting the war against the people of Iraq, mounted by Tony Blair in 1993. No, it's not 1993, 2003. And the Observer has never been held to account for its complicity with the war against humanity that Tony Blair was part and parcel of. So when they talk about the liberal journalism, it is impossible to actually locate in the coverage of the contents of the Observer in the last, what, 20 years, 23, 21 years, of any real, original, investigative journalism supporting the ideas for which liberalism can be cited as representative of the rights, the entitlements, and the needs of the people that are deprived, are denied, and disenfranchised by society, by capitalism, and so on. The Observer has not played any part whatsoever in raising the issue of world poverty. World poverty, hunger and famine, destitution, massacres that are taking place, have been taking place across Africa, across Asia for the last few decades, which underlie the real reason for many thousands of people trying to cross the channel between France and Britain and seek asylum. There is no evidence of the Guardian or the Observer playing any part whatsoever in the last, let's say, 50 years in unmasking the corruption in local councils, not just in Tower Hamlets, but in all the English local councils. Corruption is the leader. Corruption is the ruling force, the ruling power in the councils. So every year, English local councils make routine bids for funding by the central government. And the way that they actually make the pleas for extra funding is to show that there are financial crisis so severe that the council would be in debt forever without central government funding. Looking at the actual behavior of the decision makers in local councils' positions, it becomes very clear that the decision makers are not in the least interested in serving the people whose needs are supposed to be met by the funding, extra funding that they actually seek from the central government. One of the most notorious and most persistent sources of institutional, individual, collective robbery of council funding is carried out by council employees, councillors who create relationships with criminals that are given contracts by the relevant council. So there are hundreds of councils that are found to be involved in this kind of relationships. That is the context, that is the actual summary of the evidence that the privatized column or page that is called Rotten Borough's column is completely dead because it doesn't deal with any of those things whatsoever. So this bulletin, which is more than just over 12 minutes, is ending at this point, but the issues will be continued and updated.